Hey, Connor's coming to town. Ordinarily, when we use that phrase, we're talking about Conor McDavid, the single greatest player in the entire world. But in this case, as we're talking to Rishaug in Edmonton, we're talking about Connor Bedard. Shogger, what's the feeling? I mean, you must see it when you travel with Connor McDavid. Every time you go into a new city, there's a different buzz. Everybody wants to talk to him. What kind of buzz is Bedard bringing to Edmonton for Saturday night's game?
Yeah, he will. It follows him, Gino. I mean, he's a special player, and I think what's interesting about Bedard is he's got that one thing that everybody wants to see, right? Everybody wants to see that drag and shoot move that he does, and it's worth the price of admission. So, yeah, definitely there's buzz. You know, McDavid talked to the media today. He was asked if somebody got Connor McDavid answering questions about Connor Bedard the day before the game, which is pretty standard, right? Superstar to superstar. But, yeah, even though it's year 2 here, I don't sense that the buzz has gone down at all for Connor Bedard. You only see him a few times a year in this building, each fan base. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun when the two Connors go head-to-head. Always lots of fun.
All right, I think I've waited long enough to talk about the Oilers start, so let's get to it. Everybody wants to talk about this. The Oil did not look great in the preseason. I think you went 3-5 in the preseason. And then obviously the opener against the Jets was just flat. Now, here's my question, Shogger. You played the game. Is it just hard to get out of the gate when the last time you played on the ice, the cup was within your grasp, and now you got to start taking things seriously? I mean, we refer to it as the Stanley Cup hangover. Is it just going to take a little while, realistically, for guys to say, all right, enough about what happened, let's get back on track now? Is that all this is?
Yeah. I think so. I'll be honest with you, Gino. I think my experience covering this team all of last year is much more relevant than my cup of coffee in the Western League touring press box to press box. So I'll lean more on my experience from last year. Okay. I mean, we saw them get off to a tough start last year, right? And if you remember, Gino, like, you know, we'd go do post game, and after the first loss, it's like, yeah, we're not going to panic. You know, we know we can be better than that. Yeah. You're like, okay, that's how you're supposed to handle it when you have a tough start. You don't panic. And then after the third one, it was like, yeah, we know we can be better, but look, we have faith in each other. You're saying the right things to the media. The question is, what's real behind the scenes? And I think last year's experience probably has them a little tighter here than they would have been at this time last year. They do not want to get into this, this tilt-a-whirl cycle where it's like they just can't find it. So I'm sensing some sense of urgency, excuse me, Gino, from the group to grab hold of this thing before they start on that same track they were on last year. You know, they need to get this thing righted. They know it, and they don't want it to be 2, 3, 4, 5 games, and it's the same old, same old.
You just spoke to Connor McDavid a few minutes ago. What's he got to say about the start?
Yeah, I mean, he's focused, right? He's super focused. He's all business. You know, he's not thrilled with it. You know, their line had a really tough night in the opener. McDavid didn't have a shot on net. Team gets shut out. Power play doesn't strike. And they gave up 6. Like, that's a hard night to start the season. Not as hard as last year, but close. So he's focused. You know, I don't think they were thrilled with the way the preseason went. Okay, crumple that up and throw it out. It's only preseason, right? Until you start the season that way. And that happened. So my sense on McDavid today was he was kind of all business. You know, I think they know that tomorrow night is a game that if they play well, they should be able to have. And so I would expect them to stop this before it goes too far this year, having learned lessons from last year. But I think McDavid is kind of the tip of the spear in making sure he brings what he needs to bring to give them the best chance, because he and many others did not in Game 1.
Speaking of lines that did not have a great start in Game 1 against the Jets, Leon Draisaitl line. Now, he's got 2 new line mates in Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner. And let's be honest, Skinner struggled. But he's playing with Leon Draisaitl. Realistically, how long do you think it takes? How long do you have to give these guys together to say, yeah, they got a real shot of finding some chemistry there, or plan B, we got to come up with a different alternative?
Well, you know, this is what I would throw back to you, Gino. If it's not Skinner, who is it? There's nobody in this lineup applying upward pressure. So when you think about the players that the Oilers lost, right? Ryan McLeod, Dylan Holloway, Warren Foegele, right? And we know the reasons why each of them left, but that was that next layer that would put upward pressure on whoever was on the second line. Each one of those guys could moonlight in that spot and compete for those minutes. With those three gone, like, it's Matthias Janmark, it's Vasily Podkolzin, it's maybe Adam Henrique, but now you got to figure out a third line. Now Derek Ryan's your third line center. So my point is there's a middle layer they no longer have, Gino. It's not like they're blessed with all these other options. So they're going to have to let it breathe a little bit. Skinner's going to have to get going, though, right? He's not a player that plays with a lot of pace. He's going to have to be good on the wall in his own end, making sure he's breaking out pucks tape to tape on Leon Draisaitl. A bit of an issue there in the first game. You know, understanding you got to dig for him in the offensive zone. He just needs to get going. I'm not saying that it won't work or that it can't work, but so far, through I think 3 games they've played together, it hasn't been a great look, and Skinner needs to get going. Now, with that said, Draisaitl did not have a great night on the other night in Game 1 either.
Yeah. All right. So listen, no one's hitting the panic button. It was one game. It was a 6 bagel. I mean, listen, it wasn't pretty. We understand that. Changes. Are we going to see any changes at all for Saturday night against the Hawks?
Yeah. So what we saw at practice today, there was one adjustment. So Ty Emberson was the guy that was kind of circled to go next to Darnell Nurse on the second pairing. And in the third period of that game the other night, he ended up on a pairing with Brett Kulak, and Travis Dermott was the one who had bumped up and was skating next to Darnell Nurse. We saw that again in practice today. Based on the way Knobloch was talking, I think we'll see that change for the second game. I mean, it's interesting. Like Emberson, you bring him in, he's got 30 games of experience. You kind of earmark him for that spot, and he's played a couple of games next to Nurse. He played 1 exhibition game next to Nurse and the first regular season game, and already there's a switch there. So I get it. Chris Knobloch is looking for something that feels like it fits. He wants to put guys in positions to succeed, but I think you got to let it breathe a little bit. So I'm surprised if Emberson doesn't start next to Nurse next game. I would be surprised. That feels a little quick to me to take the guy who was the leading candidate to fill that spot and pull the rug out from underneath him on that pairing already. I feel like that would be a little soon, but that's what they skated in here today.
Shogger, I love your insights, my friend. Just makes me more excited about looking forward to seeing Conor versus Conor Saturday night in Edmonton. Brian Rishaug has joined us from Edmonton.